Hello everyone. Welcome. Let me know that you can see me and hear me. I know there's a little bit of a lag, so I'll give it a minute. I am so excited to be talking about dating today for modern women, how to be celibate, I think it's pronounced while dating. I wanted to especially put that in the title of this video. Oops, I'm gonna mute this. I always forget to mute it. Because I think a lot of people misunderstand rotational dating or dating for marriage, which could also be called traditional dating. It could be called courting for marriage. It could be called dating with purpose. There's different names for this. And a lot of people think that dating multiple men is like wrong because it means that we're sleeping with multiple men or that we are doing something wrong or we're cheating or something like that. So I wanted to kind of talk about relationships and dating and why I really promote not sleeping with people before marriage. And so let me know. Okay, yes, I figured, Abby, congratulations. It seems like you have a new handle. Hopefully, a new YouTube channel is coming. Welcome, everyone. Welcome all of our new members. If you would like to participate in the chat, there is a link in the description box. You can also join with that join button to be able to ask questions and participate with the chat. Please give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm so more people can see this. So the first thing I want to say before we even get into the deep topic is that most people, whether they are conscious of this or not conscious of it, are trying to pair bond in relationships. This is where relationships feel good. When we're pair bonded to our partner, that's when we feel polarity with them. That's where we feel, those romantic feelings. That's where we feel those friendship feelings. That's when we feel like we are on the same team. We feel united. We feel really good in the relationship. Anything else we're doing is not going to feel good to us because evolutionarily speaking, pair bonds are what create that unit that feels like a family. So there's the couple of places where you can feel pair bonded. One is when you are born into a family and your, parents are available for you, especially your mother in the first 3 years, and that deep bond is created between you and your earliest caregivers, especially with your mom and your dad, and then also your extended family members, right? That's where that initial pair bonding happens. The second, pair bonding that happens is through people that we choose. So these might be like long-term friendships where, back in the day, you lived in the same neighborhood that you were born into, and people generally stayed close to home. Of course, now this is changing. So we had like a lot of childhood friendships that where we had gone through a lot of different things with these people, right? Like we went through massive like rites of passage with these people. We graduated with these people. We experienced loss and growth and expansion and all of these experiences that they were having. So that was another sort of like kinship and like friendship pair bonding. And then the biggest pair bonding that we have later on in life is with our romantic partner. And this is a really important one because it recreates that like childhood bond and that childhood pair bond that we had. This one is essentially even more important in today's culture because a lot of times we didn't have that original pair bond with our parents, especially if our mom was working outside the home or emotionally unavailable, and we don't have those large kinship networks of our grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins that we used to have. So we look to these romantic pair bonds to then help us heal all of the lack of pair bonding in childhood. So when we are looking for relationships, no matter what we're calling it, no matter if we're like conscious or unconscious about this, we are subconsciously trying to create that pair bond experience. Now, when we are in boyfriend and girlfriend relationships, our DNA doesn't know that this is not a forever relationship. Even though mentally you might be saying, well, we're just testing each other out. We can always end this, and then we'll decide. Your hormones and your DNA and your brain and like all of your being doesn't understand that, because we didn't used to have this system where men got to test us and take us for a test drive to see if we were worthy of marriage. We've just never had that in our evolutionary history. No other species has that either. So this is not unique to Homo sapiens. There just isn't any of that in any animal kingdom. Like nowhere do we have this thing where the male species gets to test drive the female species. Like either you're mating or pair bonding or not, right? Like now some species do not have pair bonding, they only have mating, but sapiens have pair bonding. We are one of those species that does pair bind, and it's very important to us. So because when we're doing the whole boyfriend and girlfriend thing, you might be telling yourself that this is not permanent, he's just test driving me, then he's going to get to decide if he wants to marry me or not. Your hormones start pair bonding with him when you're spending time together, when you're making eye contact, when you are touching each other, when you're in close proximity a lot of times, when you're laying down together, when you're having sex. The pair bonding process starts, but it cannot be completed because there's this big wall of this may end. This is not permanent. He is only test driving me, right? So think of it as if I went to go buy a car and I decided that I was going to take the car for a test drive to see if I liked the car. Well, what if I took the car for a test drive, but they started running my bank, they started wiring the money. I had not even given them permission, but they just started wiring the money for the car into their bank account. So, like, I'd be upset, right? Like, it's like the process of pair bonding has started, but I'm like, no, but I was only test driving this. Now, in those circumstances where it does work out, where the guy eventually does, decide to get married, even in those circumstances, because of a lot of other reasons, it still doesn't work out. We know this because in Western cultures where people choose their own partners, they do not have family members and other kin involved in the process. The divorce rates are very, very high, right? So even if it ends up good, and I hope that it ends up well for you, because of a lot of different reasons, in those cases, it still doesn't turn out well. So in the boyfriend and girlfriend relationship, it's already kind of doomed because you're even the way you're starting your pair bond, it's kind of starting off with kind of a doubt. So imagine if you were born into your family and you were a baby and you started pair bonding with your mom, but your mom kept saying, well, don't get too close. I don't know if I'm going to keep you or not. Like, I don't know if I'm going to give you up for adoption, but you're like loving, like smelling her. You want to be next to her. You want to just cuddle her. You want to just be with her all the time. In fact, as a baby until 3 years, you don't even know that you are separate than her. You don't even know that you are not a part of her. And yet, what if she was looking at you like, well, let's just keep some distance. Like, I might give you up for adoption. I don't know if I really love you. I don't know if it's forever. I like spending time with you. You're cute, but I don't know if you're mine yet. Well, what would happen to that natural pair bonding experience? Well, it would already have this level of like doubt and insecurity and lack of trust and all of these things. So even at, let's say after 3 or 4 years, she's like, you know what? You are really cute and I can't live without you. I'm going to keep you. Well, it's still those 3 or 4 years of doubt have still messed up the entire pair bonding process, right? Like now you have to learn to relax in that container when you've been like walking on eggshells, not realizing and not knowing for certain if this was real. And that's what can happen in a lot of like boyfriend girlfriend relationships. Let me see what you guys are saying. I have seen women be really bitter after having a boyfriend that marries them. It took him 4 years to propose. Ladies are talking about this year after they got married. Exactly. So that just sums up my point, is that even when it works out, think of it, you have two people who already have this value system of like having one foot in and one foot out. You already have these two people coming in with the doubt saying, I don't know, like I have to test drive this. I'm not sure if she's the right one. I'm not sure if marriage is the right thing. You already have that. And then that natural pair bonding experience, which should have started after marriage, when it's certain, when you're like, wow, this person is all in, let me also be all in into the pair bonding experience. It's already starting off with that, I don't know, like we'll see. And so that pair bonding experience gets really, really disturbed. And so, like, we're talking about, even if that guy marries you after 7, 8, 9 years, 4 years, 3 years, there's still this sense of, why did it take you this long? And you have now gotten used to auditioning. And a lot of times these women keep auditioning after marriage, right? Not to mention you're marrying a man that doesn't have more of the traditional values. So he's now going to come in questioning providing and all of these other things. So that is another case for not having a lot of intimate time together. What you're supposed to be doing in the dating stage is, you know, getting to know each other's values, getting to know each other's families, getting to know each other's like childhood, getting to know each other's friends. And those personal values and the bloodlines will give you so much more information than sleeping with someone, test driving someone, like doing all of these other things that you think are actually helping you, but they're actually ruining your life. And here's another thing. If you had these kind of like, let's call them failed pair bond attempts, okay? Let's see if there's like a failed. No, it's not making anything cute. I thought it was gonna like spell something cute and I have invented something, but no. Okay. So if you had, let's say that you had a not you had a mom that was working full time and maybe wasn't present and you couldn't pair bond with her fish properly in the first 3 years, maybe where you were in daycare. So now you have one failed pair bonding attempt in your history. Let's say at 16 you got your first high school boyfriend, your high school sweetheart, and obviously most of those don't last. So let's say that that ends in 2 years. Second failed pair bonding effect. Let's say that you go to college and you have, 3 or 4 kind of hookups that maybe you can't call them your boyfriend, but these were just men that you hooked up with. Well, your body doesn't know about these, that's not a real, like, person, because we didn't have hookups for our evolutionary history, especially as a pair bonding species. When we hook up, the pair bonding process starts, but it's not proper because we don't have a lot of the safety and securities that we get and the commitments that we get in marriage. So now let's say you have like 6 pair bonding attempts. After high school or college, you have another serious boyfriend and you wait on him to propose for 4 years. Okay, 7. Like, do you already see what's happening to your mental and psychological health at this point? You've had 6, 7, 8 failed pair bonding attempts. And because of that, you're starting to now question your worth. You're now starting to question your, like the esteem meter that's been coming on for you, it's very negative. And by this time, you have a couple things you can do. Either you can completely psychologically break down and think that there's something wrong with you, that you are broken, that you are not worthy, and you can look to alcoholism, drugs, you can go to therapy, and maybe they place you on medications. Maybe you have anxiety that they need to now cure. So that's one way people deal with it. Another way people deal with it, and some of these overlap, is that you can start not taking, like your psyche can have this effect where it says, you know what, nothing's wrong with me. People are just wrong. Men are wrong. Men are bad. They did this to me. So either you internalize that and say something's wrong with me and I'm broken, Or you do both and you're like now saying, well, no, I'm not really broken. And you shelter yourself up and you say, men are broken, men are bad. They did this to me. They abused me. But either way, right? Let's say that now the guy that is wants to marry you, wants to, take care of you, wants to pair bond with you, shows up. And even in the best case scenario, if you like this guy and you marry him, your psyche is messed up. Like you don't believe you're worthy. You don't know how to pair bond because you have held all of these failed pair bonding experiences. So a lot of times, women that have had all of these faux relationships will have the perfect guy and they'll end up in, a coaching container with me saying, I'm just not attracted to him. He takes care of me, he pays the bills, we have kids together, we household together, but he annoys me in this way, or I'm not attracted to him. And through the work that I do with them, they start healing those parts of themselves that have been misaligned or kind of messed up because of all of these failed pair bonding attempts. So this is why if I can catch women that are younger and tell them this, and the reason that we don't tell younger women this is because the older women that have been doing this get really, really offended. So we now live in a culture where we have to be politically correct. We do not want to trigger people. There's a wonderful book that I'm about to read. I haven't read this book. I've watched this guy's TED Talks and all of his talks on YouTube. I've been watching this. The author's name is The Coddling of the American Mind. And he's been talking about in his talks how we train this whole nation of people that require psychological and emotional like coddling, and you have to like give trigger warnings on things now and talks now. And it's ridiculous because we do not have this in other parts of the world. And like people in other countries and other cultures are allowed to discuss things because we don't have this culture where we have to tiptoe around the people that that feel shame because they don't agree with the decisions they have made. And so we've created this very fragile nation. So up until now, most people have kept their mouths shut because they're like, no, 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 we can't trigger the women that have already done this, so let's just shut up. But what's happening now is that the psychological disorders, the suicide rates, the dependence on drugs and alcohol and pharmaceuticals have gone up. And so now more people like me are willing to take the risk and say, okay, we're really going to ruffle some feathers and we're going to upset people that have already done this, but we have to speak out. So I believe that you can always do inner work. You can always heal. I'd rather have the information, not have the information. But obviously, being born to immigrant parents, I wasn't coddled. I wasn't raised in a situation where I need to receive trigger warnings or, it's so someone had placed a trigger warning under one of my other videos. It's so funny to me, hilarious. It went into the other folder and I had to approve it. I approved it. I just think it's so funny. It's hilarious that grown ass people need warnings before they can listen to stuff now. By the way, I am a victim of rape and childhood sexual abuse. I do not require warnings to listen to stuff. It is just so interesting what we've done to society in just like 1 or 2 generations, how fast it's changed. So I approved it, but it's like, my gosh. Okay, so I'm glad that people are risking their whole careers to speak out about this. Even the author that I'm speaking about has said how like he can get in trouble for a lot of the stuff that he has to like tiptoe around because people just are psychologically fragile these days. They will fall apart. They will break up. They will break and like fall into pieces if they hear you talking about something that they don't agree with. So what we have to tell our young people who still have a chance to avoid this entire trap is please do not have these faux relationships. Now, I posted a little what is it called? Short, YouTube short earlier today, and someone said, well, technically marriage is a faux relationship because we invented this. So let's talk about this. Actually, marriage is not a full relationship. The marriage, the legal status part of it, like the making it like a legal entity, is new, but we've had marriage for many, many thousands of years. Before we had like the legal, like the government attachment to it, we used to have ceremonies, we used to have rituals. And this is why even today, when we have made marriage a legal status, most people still have some kind of a religious ceremony, even if they are not religious themselves. So you can go to the courthouse and you can get your, like in the United States, you can get your license to get married, but you still most likely will have some kind of a ritualistic process, whether you're wearing a white dress and standing in front of someone that's going to marry you, or, if you're Muslim, you're going to have a nikah. You're going to have, if you're Hindu, you're going to have your entire like beautiful ceremony in the temple. So we've had marriage for a really long time. And I think that some people talk about marriage when they just mean the legal thing, but we've had it for long enough where it is a part of our DNA. The second argument I would like to make about that is that even if marriage is a newer thing, marriage allows you to properly pair bond, and pair bonding happens in our closest DNA relatives other than Homo sapiens as well. So pair bonding is not, just new to us. We've had this in our evolutionary history for a really long time. So what most people mean when they talk about marriage is that this is my person that I'm not choosing to pair bond with for the rest of my life. That's actually in our vows in most religions and cultures, till death do us part. Like, you are now deciding to be committed and pair bonding with one person. So if you're going to come at me with this kind of random argument, be at least as educated as I am, because I think a lot of people now just learn stuff randomly from social media and throw this random stuff out, but they haven't thought it through. And the other thing is that a lot of people that have learned their knowledge from social media or from these really crazy feminist groups have learned the Jerry Springer version. So a lot of uneducated people, or people that are trying to control you and manipulate you, will often use the Jerry Springer versions of the argument. And for those of you guys that are new to my channel and haven't heard me talk about what do I mean by Jerry Springer, is that there is a bell curve of everything, of every human nature, of every human psychology. Like, there's always a bell curve, right? So that means that most people fall in the middle, in the average, and then we have some outliers on extremes, on the outside of that. And what the feminist communities do is they will scare you with the Jerry Springer versions. So for example, if feminist groups wanted you to not ride on the airplane, they would bring you those examples of the planes that crashed. They would not tell you about the planes that landed safely. And that's exactly what they do. They will come at you and they will tell you all of the places that went bad. So for example, anytime any educated person starts talking about Eastern values, they're going to bring up what? They're going to talk about, oh, women are just property in that culture, or, women are sold in marriage. And again, maybe that's 0.001% of cases, right? Maybe that's like the extreme Jerry Springer version, but you're not going to compare yourself to that. You're going to compare yourself with what? With the middle of the bell curve, with the average, because you are not the Jerry Springer version. You are a normal person looking for a normal relationship. You're looking to pair bond like normal Homo sapiens. You are not going to be on any extreme on that bell curve, because most people are not. Most people are in the average. So this is how to also gauge when you are watching content, is that are they only giving you the Jerry Springer argument? Okay, because if they're only giving you the Jerry Springer argument, then there's something is very lopsided with that. How do normal people, the average people, live? How do they get married? What works for them in those Eastern cultures will help you, because those Eastern cultures have not evolved out of our evolutionary history. Those cultures still prayer bound. They still do all of the traditional things. Okay, so I have a couple other things I want to talk about, but let me do this. I'm going to talk about make a quick announcement, take some questions, and then I will. Okay, I already talked about that. Let me see. I had some notes of things I wanted to cover. Okay, one thing I want to quickly announce is that I didn't get to come on live yesterday, so I extended the cart for the hypnotic sexual adventure course until a few more hours today. We're meeting live in there for the brand new class called Savagely Seductive. So if you would like to join me live and have this entire course, lifetime access, the Intoxicate Play Shop is also included in this. The Hypnotic Sex, I'll throw the link for you in the chat, is open for a couple more hours today, and then the cart will be closing. Okay. There's another little bit I want to talk about reciprocal relationship versus transactional relationships, but let me check in with you guys and see how you're doing, and then we'll talk about reciprocal versus transactional relationships. Okay, who's excited about hearing more about that? Give this video a thumbs up, and those of you guys watching the replay, please leave a comment. I really appreciate you guys doing this. I will make myself available afterwards to engage with you, answer comments, questions. That really helps. Fear-mongering about men and rampant misandry. I can't even say that word. Misandry. I can't say it. I I can't. I'll try, but I can't. Okay, that word thrive on social media because they appeal to the most basic babes. Exactly. It's they're using the same kind of evolutionary wiring in the you that media outlets use, right? Uh, Imagine if you saw a headline, all the flights today made it safe. All the flights landed safely. No one got shot. Or, like, you're not going to click on that. You might be happy, but you're not going to click on that. What gets you to click is like the stuff that, if they say why planes are dangerous now, you're going to click on that because you might be like, oh my God, like my kid is supposed to get on a plane today, or I'm going to get on a plane tomorrow. So that's what they're using. Anytime someone comes at me with those kind of arguments, and if I start to have an educated discussion with them, they can't because they're not informed. They have only heard these kind of random kind of like one-off Jerry Springer versions. So even with my culture, when people bring up, well, blah 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 about marriages, I'm like, babe, you're talking about forced marriages. We're talking about arranged marriages. We're talking about marriages where the guys vetted. Like, oh, like they cannot. Their arguments are one-liners, just like the media outlets, because they don't have the depth to actually talk about how all of this stuff works and how it's tied to science and their evolutionary history. They haven't spent time thinking about it. I'm not blaming them because most people are not educated in this stuff, right? They're just taking at face value all of these things that are coming up, and the algorithm serves you more of what you click on. So the more you click on these crazy Jerry Springer versions of relationship, the more the algorithm serves you that, and the more you start seeing this very lopsided view of relationships, and then you start living in fear. We need the harsh truth. I wish I would have heard this message years ago. I'm 22. Wow. Okay. So you're still very young. And again, I want to emphasize that most of the clients that I have worked one-on-one, like a big chunk of them were in their 40s and 50s. And I have a very, very high success rate for women getting married in that age group. So obviously I'm not coming here trying to alienate them and be like, you're screwed. Where in my work have you ever gotten from me that I believe that we're all victims, or some of us are victims? Like, I am like a plant, bloom where you're planted kind of girl. Like, that's just how I am. I am a glass half full, the sun is always shining, be grateful, like we can make this work, we can figure this out kind of person. So I'm giving the information to the people that can still use it while they're still young, and then solutions for the rest of us that didn't get this information, at the right time. Being celibate and focusing my mental and physical energy on healing and self-mastery has been life-changing. Yes. And actually, in the hypnotic course, I talked about how I have used my sexual energy to make my skin glow, to regrow hair growth that I had issues when I was going through autoimmune disease. I had all of these dark spots on my face from, you guys know all my autoimmune stuff, right? So I use my own sexual energy to heal my body. I use my own sexual energy to create over 60 courses, to coach hundreds of clients, to hold tens and thousands of students through my courses, to write 2 books, to nurture and spread good things in this planet. You can use it for good. But the thing is that up until very recently, we used to get this information passed down from the women in our family, but in the last couple of generations, women have been told to have sex like men. And the truth is, where did you even learn to have sex? Probably from a man. Well, where did that man learn to have sex? Probably from like his teenage friends. Well, where did his teenage friends learn to have sex? Their parents, lame bees and birds talk, random TV shows, random websites. Like, where did you, this was a sacred art that was passed down generation to generation. Well, where did you learn how to do this, right? And all of this stuff is supposed to be explored in the safety and sacred relationship of marriage, where it is the safest to pair bond, right? But if you just slept with random people, random hookups, then I'm here to tell you that you probably have a very twisted relationship with sexuality, and not only with your own sexuality but with sex, and then you have lost that ability to pair bond. So in tomorrow's savagely seductive class, one of the things that I really want to talk about is pair bonding using a sexual experience, and how to actually start even healing your own self if you're single, and start even repairing those broken threads of pair bonding within yourself using your own sexual energy. Many of our parents didn't learn properly about sex, so they couldn't teach us. Yes, and the thing is, a lot of us didn't have that kind of close relationship with our parents where we could even ask questions. Some of us had like a very awkward kind of first conversation even with our parents. Yes, this rings 100% true for me. Now at midlife, I am having to heal from exactly what you were talking about now in my 50s. Yes, we can make it work. I'm here for all the solutions you are teaching. Yes, right? So I think what happens is sometimes women hear, women in their 30s, 40s, 50s hear this conversation that we're trying to teach our kids or the younger generation. I have a lot of younger audience following me now too. And then they get offended thinking that I'm saying that they're doomed. No, you're not doomed. But sometimes we need to be able to talk to the youngsters too. Here's why. If we don't talk to them and help them prevent this, then we're always just having to heal. And again, that might be great for me from a business standpoint, but that's not what I want. I don't want to let people fall off the cliff only so I can have more clients. No, I want to give, if I can stop people that haven't made those mistakes yet, I would much rather you do not show up as my client. You don't need any inner work. Like, I would much rather that, because I hope that my kids will be in that category where they're like already know that stuff. They don't do make any of those mistakes. So, but for the rest of us, thank God for inner work, right? Like, thank God for inner work, because there's always solutions. Like, God does not just leave us hanging. There's always solutions. But just because you have, a broken arm, God forbid, and you can go to the doctor and heal, doesn't mean we shouldn't tell people, hey, don't fall off this thing, you'll get a broken arm, right? Let us also tell them not to get the broken arm while we're healing your broken arm. How about that for analogies? Can you kiss during this time when you are engaged? Um, I It depends. A lot of times I shy away from giving general information because there's a lot of ifs and buts. If you I see from your name, I have a cousin with that name, so I can tell that you are Pakistani or Indian. Um, if you are Indian or Pakistani, the truth is he's gonna respect you less if you do. I'm just gonna be honest with you. Irfan and I had a peck on the lips after we got engaged, and our wedding date was already set for 2 months later. I regret that. I feel like I wish I hadn't done that. Like I just feel like it doesn't in our culture, especially where we're more traditional, I would rather that you don't. But again, it just depends. That's why I'm able to give more customized advice when I'm coaching, and I don't have any coaching slots open. I'm sorry, I know I keep mentioning coaching, but I just don't have any slots open at the moment, and I don't know when I'm going to be taking clients again. But it's just easier to, when you're giving, general content like this, you have to go broad and wide. You have to say it in a way that will help the most number of people. When you are talking one to someone, then you can customize it. But knowing from your name that you're from my culture, I would advise you not to do it. Women get mad because they are experiencing shame about what they are doing. Exactly. The one thing that I think has contributed to the downfall, the quick downfall of Western society is we removed public shaming. Public shaming has been as old as, caves. Like it has kept societies in check. There's two parts of that. Public shaming, think of it as a magnet for accountability. So one part of the magnet is outside of us and the other part of the magnet is inside of us. And both of these things has to be in resonance for us to feel shame. So, for example, if I was born a serial killer and I thought killing wasn't wrong, then no one could shame me because even though the public shaming button is outside that part of the magnet, I don't have resonance for what I agree with. So in that situation, I would not feel shame, right? Because if I believed that that was totally fine, then I wouldn't feel shame. Well, in traditional societies, we had this public shaming mechanism because people that are more traditional and live in close like kinship groups tend to believe similar things. And if I felt shame because I knew I was doing something wrong and then I was publicly shamed, we'd be in resonance and then I would stop doing the thing that was causing me shame. That has been a huge part of keeping men and women accountable. Well, now what's happened is that we still have the internal magnet that makes us feel shame when we're doing something wrong, but we're not allowed to have the outside magnet because that is called public shaming. It's called trigger warning. It's called cancel culture. It's called you made me feel this way, right? And so because of that, what we did is we still have the internal thing, but we remove the external thing so that people can walk around doing things that they're feeling in congruence with, but that no one can make like shine that mirror of that other magnet. And because of that, there's so much less accountability because now everyone has to walk on eggshells. Like I could just be living my life and just loving my family, going about my business. But if I pass by someone that's internally feeling shame and my magnet, even though I don't even look at this person, accidentally triggers their magnet, I could get in trouble for that. They could say, "Oh my God, Mina made me feel shame. I'm just passing by, living my life. That thing is inside of you. You need to look at your own decisions." But we've removed that in the Western culture. That's why the trigger warnings come. That's why, there's cancel culture. That's why, people are just emotionally distraught because we've removed a very essential part of society. Uh, let's see. They love this. Thank you for sharing with us. I used to be triggered when men left or called me not normal if I had no sex before marriage. Now I am just unbothered. Yes, here's the thing. You have to realize there's two different categories of men. The traditional men, the good men, the healthy men, shame women for sleeping around. They are very concerned about body count. And then, yet, you're encountering men that want you to sleep with them before marriage. It's not the same man. It's two different types of men. And sometimes there is a little bit of overlap. We know, evolutionarily speaking, there is an overlap of DNA. There is a third category. However, there's traditional men who believe in pair bonding, being with one woman for the rest of their life. They don't, want to sleep around. They don't want you to sleep around. These are very traditional, healthy men, and they exist all over the world. These are the men that are a big chunk of them are passport bros. By the way, I think it's kind of funny that they're calling passport bros a new thing. My dad was a passport bro like over 40 years ago, but I think what they mean is the movement is new, but this concept is not new. I don't know if you guys knew this, but my dad was literally a passport bro, and like half of my cousins are passport bros. So, it's not a new concept because they look around and they're like, oh my God, like there's no traditional women here. What is going on over here? And they have no choice but to go and find someone overseas that matches their values a lot more. So those are those men. And then there's like the men that society calls the Chads, right? Evolutionarily speaking, a lot of these men are the cheaters gene men. They are the men that cannot be pair bond. They have trouble being with just one person. And so from an evolution perspective, these are the men that would have been more likely to have polygamy. These are the men that can sleep around and not trigger their pair bonding thing. That part of them is either broken, or they can separate the two. They can sleep around and then pair bond later with one woman. That mechanism is not intertwined for them as it's for women, and as for the other group of men that I just talked about, the traditional men. So these men will shame you and try to get you to sleep with them because they don't care about your well-being. They don't care that you're going to be psychologically damaged. They don't care that your pair bonding mechanism will be broken. They don't care that you will lower your mate value for future men. They don't care about you. They don't care that sleeping with them will open you up to a lot more health issues, STDs, and even just not even going that route, not even going STD. The truth is that a sexually active woman or a girl needs a lot more medical care. So your medical costs will go up, your psychological costs will go up, your, future damage with pair bonding they don't care about you. Just to give you an example, I'm married to a man for, October will be 15 years for us. We met in August. So it's been 15 years for us, and we are very closely pair bonded. This man, like my little ouch is like this man's like, oh my gosh, right? So, the example I was sharing with a client is, I often hear of women sleeping around and then complaining that a man tried to choke them in bed or tried to, hurt them in bed. And I cannot even imagine this. So I was telling to my client that when you're pair bonded with a man that like cares about you, if I like say as much of as an ouch, because like let's say that my hair gets, whatever, tangled during intimacy or something happens, like even the slightest like even if I like if I'm not like, I don't want to be too graphic, but as enthusiastic as I was to, he's like, are you okay? Is it like, when you are pair bonded with a person, they care about every aspect of you. Okay, they take care of you. They treat you like you're a delicate flower. Like, let me give you an example. Another example. When I moved here last year into this neighborhood, I wasn't in this like I wasn't in the state of mind. Like I wasn't excited about changing doctors. I like my doctor in the old neighborhood, and just to give you an idea, it's an hour and 15 minutes back into my old neighborhood. So, it would be like 3 hours back and forth. So Irfan was like, choose a new doctor, I was like, that's fine, I'm not going to. Well, a year passed, and then I needed my appointment, and he was on me again, like, hey, your appointment, your appointment. And so then he went ahead, called my doctor, made my appointment, and he said, you know what? On this day, you're already going into this neighborhood. I was going to have lunch with a girlfriend. He's like, I went ahead and scheduled your appointment. Just go see her, and then we'll talk next year about possibly changing doctors for you. That's what a man that's in love with you does. He's pair bonded with me. He cares about my yearly appointments more than I care. He cares about every little part of my well-being. So a few days ago, Irfan had a cough, right? And so he kept reminding me, but like, giving him his tea, I'm like reaching in for a kiss. Like, I can't kiss you. I can't kiss you. I have a cough. I have a cough. Keep your distance. Things I would do with my children, my pair bonded husband almost does with me, because pair bonding is the same across. It's not about being a child or a wife. Pair bonding, it just, you just deeply care about each other and you're deeply attuned. That's what signals the family bond. That's where till death do us part comes in, because when you're that pair bonded with someone, you don't, you might get into arguments, you might even get into fights, but you don't, like, leaving that person is not something that's like you're wearing that thing on your arm, right? It's, you don't have one foot in, foot out. So these men that are wanting you to sleep with them without giving you the legal and spiritual commitment of a marriage, they don't care about you. They don't care that your mate value will go down. They don't care that you're opening yourself up to not only sexually transmitted diseases, but other health issues. A sexually active woman needs more medical care. They don't care that your medical costs will go up. They don't care that you'll have psychological damage. Why should they care? Why should they care? They don't, because they're just caring about their own enjoyment. You are just an experience for them. You're just another notch on their belt. Why the hell should they care about you, right? So yeah, they will pressure you, but you need to care about you. You need to care about you. And if your mom, your sister, your aunt, someone, your elders didn't tell you, then I'm here to tell you that you need to care about you, because you are opening yourself up to a lot of psychological, physical damage. And it's more like a sexually active woman, her financial costs go up. Now you need more, you need pap smears now. You need like all of these different things. If you have issues, you need more medical care. Like, who's gonna take care of you? Who's gonna take care of you if any of these things happen? This is one of the most saddest experiences. I don't even want to share the story, but I'll share it quickly and move on. This was a friend from years ago, in my 20s, so decades ago, I should say. But one of my friends back in the day in Chicago was sexually active with a man, and the rest of us all thought it was a bad idea. This was newer in our culture back then as well. So this was here in the United States, but she was from my culture, and we just didn't have women being sexually active before marriage. So this was a very new thing. And the reason that we thought this was a red flag is because of the way that he was treating her. And there was talk about marriage. I will be honest, he was talking about it, but he wasn't doing anything about it. You know what I mean? So, anyways, she was sleeping with him, and she started having all of these UTIs and all of these problems. And he was acting like she was being a big burden because of her UTIs. So she got all of these UTIs back to back because she slept with this guy, couldn't go to work, had to go repeatedly go to the doctor. She didn't have insurance from, she was working somewhere part-time. She couldn't tell her parents about all of these issues that she was having, because like literally you don't sleep around before marriage in my culture, right? So you can't go to your parents. And so she was and then he was mad at her that she wasn't healthy enough so that he could enjoy sleeping with her. Like that was the extent of his care. And this experience helped her wake up that this man was literally using her. Like, your husband will be very concerned if you had medical issues. He would not be thinking, oh, now he's not available for my enjoyment. Like, I know that if I have a cough, Irfan's like at CVS getting me cough drops, and do you need this? Like, she was in a lot of pain for like months, and this man was acting like she was a burden because she was having these UTIs. And she didn't have money. She didn't even have money to like buy a lot of these medications and stuff. So, so don't do any of this. Like, why put yourself do that? Those of you guys taking birth control pills, oh my God, so much damage. So much damage you are doing to your body. For what? For someone who's not even your husband. Someone who hasn't committed to you. Why would you do that to yourself? You are literally a pharmaceutical guinea pig for someone that hasn't committed to you. No, no, it doesn't make any sense. Let's see. Oh, welcome, Penelope. Let's see. Mina, I was a virgin until I met my now husband, but slept with him 4 months into the relationship. And even though we got married soon after, I still feel bad about it for some reason and have regrets. So okay, I would say that if you've already done something, but the outcome is now good, meaning you're good, your husband's good, let it go. If you are doing something that's making you feel guilty or shameful, listen to yourself. We feel shame for a very good reason. I know that we've been led to believe that shame is bad in American culture and Western culture, but shame is an internal GPS letting us know that something is not right with the decisions that we're making. So if you are in the middle of something and you're feeling shame, great, you can fix it. If you are at the other end, release it, forgive yourself, let it go, because you're already at the other end. I'm 44 and removed my IUD recently. It gave me so much pain and discomfort, plus the hormonal changes, not worth it. Thank you for sharing that, Amber. Yes, I feel pain just hearing you say that because I tried taking birth control once in my life for a week, and my husband was joking. He's like, "Now I know why this works because no one wants to have sex with you when you're on this, right?" Like I was like a hormonal mess. Plus, if you look at the side effects, the research, not only is it bad for the person taking it, it is now in our water supply, and it's actually causing a lot of species in the wild to be born with gender confusion, meaning like physical traits of both genders, not just gender confusion that way, but they're being born deformed basically because of the like the residue from the birth control, the hormones in the water supply now. And that is, if you want to read more about that, I have that book in my Amazon bookstore. It's called Countdown. I believe the book is called Countdown. Read about the research in there about that. It's quite interesting. So I don't understand why you would put yourself through that for a person that hasn't even committed to you. It doesn't make any sense. The most annoying men are the one who worry about body count, but they sleep around themselves. Yeah, that's that middle group. They're the ones that have the characteristics of the traditional man, but also the characteristics of the cheater's gene or the Chad, what we would call. So they're the middle third group of people. It's quite interesting. I'm not attracted to that middle group. I'm most attracted to the traditional group. So luckily I didn't have to deal with that too much. My ex was in that middle group. So he wants someone traditional, but he's the Chad. So I that's not something I'm attracted towards, but some women are. So just know that that's that group of person. I think a lot of women don't know that there's three groups. So they think that the traditional man is the same man as the middle man, but no, there's three different groups. I just saw a video on that. Estrogen is now in our water. Men are having, yep. You can read more about this in Countdown. She's one of the most leading experts in the world on this topic, on like the effects of like pharmaceuticals and toxins in our environment to our reproductive health. She's so good. Yeah. Most men are not going to advertise that they're going to wait until marriage. Require it, and you will realize that many men are willing to wait. They actually love you more for it. So, in my culture, in the Eastern culture, most men are not sleeping around. They've never slept with anyone until they sleep with their wife. In fact, they usually assign a married man as sort of your like the whole concept of best man came from this best man and like so your best man was supposed to be a married man that could kind of like teach you what to do on your wedding night, and that's still true in my culture. Obviously now with modern, the modern bug biting our culture as well, it's changing, but still the majority of men get married early on in their early 20s, women in their early 20s, and they have sex for the first time on their wedding night. This is most men. So they have the ability to do that. And most men actually do fall in this category. We've only messed this up in the Western world. Here's the other thing I wanted to say that I forgot to write down. modern women see things from a very twisted reality because they've been fed this one-sided Jerry Springer version of reality. Even the questions that they ask and the things that they filter their understanding from is very twisted. So let me give you an example. When I started talking about this stuff, I had a couple women saying, well, if I don't test out the man, then how do I know that his, whatever is working and all of this stuff? And I was like kind of taken aback because you just don't have like feminine women in my culture talking about this stuff. It's so like I've never in my 42, almost 43 years of life ever heard of a Pakistani, Indian, Middle Eastern woman talking about testing out a man's parts before marrying him. Like it's just so weird, right? So I heard all of this stuff and I'm like, are they thinking that they're testing out these men's parts while they're actually giving away this essential part of themselves and destroying their lives just so they could have a good sex life? Like, how twisted is that? So I asked God for guidance and I said, God, how can I explain this the best? In a way to a mind that doesn't understand. And this is the argument that I was starting to formulate as God was giving me more downloads. And then I found this research and I was like, thank you, God. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share this research with you. But here was the argument before the research was presented to me. What I was starting to understand when I prayed about it is that so when I'll even use myself as an example. When I got married to, so when I was previously married, I was only living together with my ex for 2 months before we kind of separated and we were like, I was pregnant, I was with my mom, and we were like on off again, trying to work it out, cheating going on. It was a lot of chaos. So I only got to physically be with him for like 2 months, and then we kind of separated. So when I got married to Irfan, he was previously married. He was married for a lot longer than I had been married, many, many, many years. But he had, only been with one woman. He was a virgin when he got married to her. And when they got divorced, he didn't sleep with any other woman until he got married to me. So when we got married, we had to learn how to like do it together, right? Like, obviously, it sounds funny to say that way because everyone knows how to do it. But we had to learn how to make love to each other. We had to learn each other's body. We had to learn each other's techniques, styles. And over the years, like every year, sex gets better and better. So in my mind, it started making sense. I'm like, oh my God, what I'm hearing is that all these women think that you're supposed to be like coming into a marriage and just like having the best sex, right? Your sexual life is only going to get better. I shouldn't use that word because YouTube will flag me, but let me say your encounters with your partner will only get better. What happens is when women and men sleep with all of these different partners, they go wide, they don't go deep, they don't learn how to into attune with another human being's body. They're not pair bonding properly. They're just kind of like dipping and then out, dipping and then out really quickly. They're going wide. They're not going deep. They think that the person coming in and them coming on need to be some kind of a PhD level in sexual activity. That's not how it works. That's never how it's worked. You are supposed to go deep with one person, and the deeper you go with one person, the more trust you build, the more you get to know each other, the more you open yourselves up to each other, the better it gets every year. But most people don't know this. So that was one argument that I was already kind of formulating, and this was brought to my attention and I was like, OMG. So here's the title. This isn't the original study, it's linked in this title, but the study says men who identify as feminists more than twice as likely to use ED medication. I'm not gonna say the word. I'm just gonna, you guys get the drift, right? So I'll throw this in the chat for you guys if you wanna check it out later. But the original study is actually linked in the description box as well in that article. Here's the thing, babes. When a man is traditional, he has more testosterone, he's healthier, he is so the same study talked about how Asian men have less problems in the bedroom than non-Asian men, and then feminist men have more problem. The point is that I'm like, oh my God, God, you're literally like speaking through me right now. Like I'm getting I prayed, and then the argument was played out like easily, right? If you are dating non-traditional men because you are a non-traditional woman, then yes, you should worry about these things and you're going to have to test them out because those are the kind of men that are more likely to have those problems. Okay. Women in my culture don't even think about this stuff because most men are healthy masculine men. They're good with their testosterone. These problems are much rarer in traditional societies. So do you see that even the problems that we think are the problems are created because we think there are these problems? Like, I know that sounds crazy, but all of this stuff is us living out of alignment. It's living against our DNA, it's living against God's work, and it's screwing everything up. Screwing everything up. Yeah? Sex has turned into a circus performance. We don't know how to go deep anymore. Yep. And here's the thing, let me tell you something. Going deep is hard because it requires a lot of vulnerability. Like, I have been with my husband for 15 years, and every year we go deeper, and it's the container needs to be expanded, and it's very vulnerable to let someone like hold space for you on that level. You would think that it would be easier. It's actually harder. And so what we do in Western culture is like we just go wide and shallow and we just do it and we run. When it starts going deep, we run. Deep, run, deep, run, right? So we just keep it shallow and we don't realize that a lot of times we're actually self-sabotaging those relationships because we're afraid to go deep. We're afraid to go deep. And the deeper you go, the more it's required of you because you're literally showing parts of yourself that you've never shown to anyone. Like, you're literally being ripped open in all the ways, right? In all of the ways. And it's very vulnerable. You have to really know yourself on a deep level to allow yourself. Like, how close my husband and I have become over the years has required a level of inner work that most people are too shallow to do. They're too shallow to do. So those were the arguments that I had, or the notes that I had for you today. I don't want to use the word argument, but any questions coming up, more than happy to answer. I'll see you guys in Hypnotic tomorrow live as well. I'll put the link for you. I have some time. I'll hang out with you guys. Anything coming up? Questions, comments? So giving someone who hasn't committed to you your body, opening yourself up to emotional damage, psychological damage, physical damage, higher medical costs. Why? Why? Not worth it. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? So not worth it. Thank you, Jasmine. I appreciate the compliment, babe. I appreciate that. Mina, generally, when is the best time to have the I'm celibate conversation? Okay, so this is a great question. The more you are embodied in traditional values, the less conversations you will have to have about them overtly. So, for example, if you are a church, let's say you're a Christian woman, I'm just going to assume for a second, but you plug in whatever religion. You're a Christian woman and he sees you going to church every weekend. He sees you dressing a certain way, speaking a certain way, talking about your family a certain way. You've already talked about what you require in a marriage. You have mentioned that you're very traditional, you're very conservative. You're not even going to have that. You don't need to have that talk, right? Now, let's say that you are very liberal, okay? That you come up with tattoos all over your body, you've got blue hair, you don't know where your family is, you're not spiritual, you don't believe in God, you hate religion, and now you're trying to do rotational dating. You're going to have to advertise that more because it goes against how you're advertising yourself, how you're marketing yourself. And so because it goes against your personal branding, how you're showing up, you might even shock people when you tell them that. You might be, celibate, but people are not going to see that right away, right? So for example, if you saw a woman in a hijab, and she, is very soft spoken. She talks about God all the time. She refuses certain things and says, I'm sorry, that's against my religion. She's very close to her family. You wouldn't even have to have that conversation with her, because it would just be assumed. Now, she might not be celibate, but it would be assumed. So what I'm trying to say is that the more traditional you are embodied, the less you need to have these conversations. The more against tradition you look, the more you might have to bring it up. Let me give you an example. I have to openly advertise that I'm very spiritual, because when Muslim people see me and they hear that I'm Pakistani and they see the way that I'm dressed, because I tend to dress not as most Muslim people dress, I do have to more overtly advertise that I'm very spiritual, I believe in God, because how I'm dressed doesn't really communicate that to them in a way that they're used to seeing. I'm not offended by this. I love dressing the way that I dress. I don't have a problem with it. My husband doesn't have a problem with it. However, I also understand that I am going against the norm for my culture, so I don't mind like making that clear. Okay, it's not something that offends me. I just need to make it clear. In fact, we went to do some shopping. We were gonna buy Irfan's sister some jewelry, and we went to jewelry shopping yesterday. And the lady over there was Indian at the jewelry store, and she said, "Are you Pakistani or Indian?" And I said, "I'm Pakistani." And I was wearing a similar outfit to this. I had the same black skirt on and a crop top. And she said, "Wow, you're Pakistani. I've never seen a Pakistani woman dressed like you." And I said, "I know. I'm one of the rare ones," or something. I said some joke. She said, "I love it. It's so cute." And then she mentioned the same thing to my husband. She's like, "Your wife is so cute. I've never seen a Pakistani girl dressed like her." So I understand that, right? So I'm not gonna get offended at that. But when they ask me questions like, "Are you Muslim?" and things, I know that I have to answer that more than a woman that would be wearing a hijab. So if you tend to look non-traditional, then you are going to have that conversation, because he's not going to instantly assume that. Thank you. I have been praying about this, and you address every point I brought to God. Awesome. I love that. I love that, because when I ask God a question, it will come to me in so many different ways. So I love that I'm able to provide that for you. Mina, is the Dubai intensive still happening? Yes, I'm so surprised why people keep asking me that. Dubai intensive is happening next month, and we are super excited. It's called the Portal. We've had several people ask, is it still happening? Yeah, it's still happening. This happened to me. I'm Muslim, but people would be surprised about me never having a boyfriend because of how I dress. They assumed I was Hindu. Exactly. So the same thing happens to me. People assume that I'm Indian, and make some a subject. And I'm not offended by that. I actually prefer to shop at Indian boutiques over Pakistani boutiques because of this, because I resonate more with the outfits of the Indian culture than I do with the Pakistani culture. Nothing wrong with that. But if they ask questions about that, I understand. I understand. So it's the same thing. If you are looking not very traditional, you're acting not very traditional, then be surprised when he's like, "You're a celibate?" Because your personal branding doesn't go with that. Is it sold out? So it is sold out. However, we had two ladies message her in the last week that can't go for various reasons. So if you email us, we can send you the link. We can open the card, and all we have to do is substitute your name for on the badge. So this is the first time that it's happened, but the Dubai Intensive requires these badges that we have to wear. No one else has ever required or asked for this. So we just have to have the badges changed. But if you do it fast enough, we can still make that happen. I don't know. Let me see if my team has closed the cart for that, because it was sold out for like 2 months. But if not, I can open it up for you. There's always one or two people that can't make it due to various things. Yes, cart is closed. I see why you would assume that it's okay. I'm gonna open it back up right now. But do it fast, because I need enough time to change the badge. Let me get you the link. Do you recommend marrying without parents because they are against and making problems? Otherwise, you have to wait years to get married. So I would have to, I can't advise this generally for your specific situation because it depends. However, generally, this is just general. I would not marry into a family that did not want me to be married into that family. It, marriages are a family affair. Whether you like it or not, those people are going to be a part of your life and they're going to be a part of your children's lives. And I feel like if I'm marrying into a family where the parents don't like me or the siblings don't like me, it's going to create problems with my husband later on. So I personally would not. Obviously, there's, you know, exceptions to every situation. I personally would not advise my children to marry into a family that did not support them. Like, for example, my in-laws love me to pieces. In fact, oftentimes when they come to visit or when we go, they're like, "Oh, we came for you," right? So, um, when you're welcomed into a family and they love you and they pair bond with you and they adore you, it's just it just provides such a huge satisfaction experience. It just adds to your quality of life versus I've seen couples just spend their entire lives just fighting with their families. And I just don't like stress. I like sukoon in my life. You guys know I'm big on sukoon, which is the Arabic word for inner peace. And I personally would not be able to do it. Oh my God, I had missed the super chat. Thank you, Mariah. She said, what inner work would you recommend to heal failed pair bonding? So I personally would start with the inner child work in the basic babe bundle. And I also talked about this in my parenting course. I know that course is for parents, but it also has modules in there to heal yourself. And I'm going to add a new module in there on pair bonding this year as well. So definitely start with your own inner work. And I would start with the basic babe bundle. There's inner child work in there. I'm also adding a lot more like pair bonding work to my existing body of work. So I don't know. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that. I might take bits and pieces of other trainings or do one training and put it in some of those courses. But all of my work is kind of built in my inner work courses, even though if I don't use that terminology. And the reason I haven't always used the terminology is because the average person doesn't understand this terminology, right? They just want to heal. They don't understand pair bonding and all of this stuff, and I don't want to complicate it. So start with the basic babe bundle. Oh, thank you, Haney, for putting that in the chat. I'm curious, would the basic babe bundle get updates to it? Right now, I feel that it's complete. If anything, it's probably has more, like too much content. I've learned over the years that sometimes too much content can actually backfire. So I don't think it would be getting any more updates. I think it feels pretty complete. Although, if 2 years later God gives me a download that I have to put this in the basic day bundle, I give myself permission to do so. But it's very complete at this point. If anything, it has too much. The other thing I want to mention, thank you for bringing this up, Stephanie, is that sometimes we'll get emails. This happened a couple times last week when we had done that new training in the gut level emotional response, a couple women emailed insisting that we put that training in my other relationship courses, and I refuse. And here's what I want you to understand. I'm very generous and I'm always adding things where I think they are needed. However, the reason I don't add some of my newer trainings to some of my older courses is because those courses are for a certain level of consciousness. And if we add the newer trainings into those older courses, it actually confuses them. Because if the newer training, for example, is for the $1 Million Babe, and you're insisting that I add it for a course that was created for the basic babe or the self-aware Barbie, what's going to happen is they'll do all the content and it will make sense to them. And once they get to that module, it will confuse them on all the previous trainings. And then they'll start emailing us saying, well, this doesn't make sense, or how do I do this? Because they're not at that level. So please don't email us and my team and insist that we do that. You have to trust the teacher. If you trust me enough to spend hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on my courses, then you have to trust that I know what I'm doing when I put certain trainings in certain courses and not in other trainings, because each of those courses are created for a certain level of consciousness. That curriculum is for that level of consciousness. I can't just start taking trainings from other courses and put it in there, because it creates confusion for the person at that level, because that person bought the course at that level. They're not going to understand if I start suddenly talking about things that are eons ahead of what they're trying to create. So just so I can explain that for you. The inner child work in the Basic Babe bundle accelerated my healing process. Some of the hardest work I've done, but so worth it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kabibi. I appreciate that. Mina, is there training available for others to learn to teach this a specific topic on their community? Babe, are you talking about the pair bonding stuff, or which one? So for me, I learned this stuff starting at university. And when I graduated, I kept learning about it because it just fascinated me and I wanted to just keep learning more and more. Um, I would say, so I have about 20 years of experience learning it, embodying it, and then teaching it. I would say you could talk about it, obviously, but we have to be a little bit careful when we're teaching something that we're not exactly embodied in yet. I think there's a space for that. There's some careers where you don't have to be embodied in order to teach. So, for example, you could be an unhealthy doctor, and that's acceptable in our society. You could be a dentist with bad teeth, that's acceptable in our society. You could be a psychologist with failed relationships, that's acceptable in our society. But when we get into the coaching world, there is generally a consensus that you need to be embodied in what you're teaching, because coaching tends to be more mentorship like. So as long as you're embodied in it and you feel confident, and then you get the education, I think I would think that's okay. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Awesome. Mina, is the STD test results part of the documentation you request of a suitor along with financial documents? No, we don't. We do not request things like that, because in my culture, there's very few people having sex outside of marriage in my culture. It's very rare, and even making that assumption would be just out, because you're literally talking to each other's families. Now, I maybe if I was, you know, not from my culture, I would request it. I'm not sure, but no, our parents do not request that. You have to understand that most people in my culture that get married are virgins, both men and women. And then if you're divorced, it's assumed that you had one partner and that was your ex-husband or your ex-wife. Pakistani culture is also very religious, and it's against the religion to sleep around outside of marriage. Um, Yeah, I think different people have different rules for what they feel comfortable teaching. Amber, just to go back to your thing, I have my standards. Like, I feel confident only teaching things that I have expertise in and I'm embodied in, but other people have different opinions on that. And so I'm not judging anyone else. I just know that I tend not to hire people that are not embodied, because that's important to me, but also because that's important to me, that's what I teach. Curious to know, which bundle would you recommend for us once we're engaged? Oh my God, the Conscious Couples course. I don't know why I don't talk about this one enough. By the way, I got an email from someone yesterday, and my assistant Renu, who does our emails, she sent it to me. She screenshotted it, and she's like, look at this. There was a woman saying that she took my, which one was it? It was the Light Workers Intensive, and then the course creation. And she was like, this, she just took those courses and she's like, these courses are life changing. Why is Mina not promoting them? And I have so many courses that sometimes I forget to promote certain courses, but that reminded me that Conscious Couples is also one of those courses that I hardly ever promote. It is a genius course for couples, but it's only for the woman to take, but it's great when you're already engaged or married. It's not joint. If you're already married or if your partner wants to take the course with you, then the $1 million man. Conscious Couples or any of my courses are not designed for men to hear. There's some savage things in there, so I would not recommend that. However, I taught the $1 million man with my husband, so that one is appropriate to listen to with men. By the way, I I had someone join the Savage Feminine with a male name, and sometimes men buy the courses for their wives or girlfriends. But I was like, I hope a man is not listening to that because the Savage Feminine is the last course I would want a man to listen to. But I don't know. I thought that was bizarre. But Conscious Couples is great for it. It teaches you how being conscious is different for men and women, and that we can't judge like the conscious man from the same lens that we often judge a conscious woman, and how to work within the polarities of that reciprocal. Oh, I forgot to talk about one thing that I wanted to talk about. Did I talk about transactional versus reciprocal relationships? Damn it, I forgot to talk about that, didn't I? Okay, Haney, if I talk about that now, please clip it and then make it its own video. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's go there a little bit. And then please, this is a start of clip, and then we're starting to do more of that where we're clipping on like chunks of videos and they're going to be coming as their own videos because there's just so much, it's just goodness, so much goodness. Okay, I forgot. You guys didn't remind me. Okay, so there are different types of relationships, and what's happening right now is that some types of relationships are more in tune with our DNA history. And because they're attuned with our DNA history, even though modern women may want a different type of relationship, they think they want a different type of relationship, their DNA won't let them. So let me give you an example. So there are reciprocal relationships, and reciprocal relationships, the way that I describe them, this is in some official dictionary definition, but this is my definition, is where a man and a woman come together and they bring the opposite uh, reciprocal relationships or dynamics. So, for example, I bring the femininity, he brings the masculinity. I bring the feminine nurturing, the warmth, the heart, the love. He brings the container, the structure, the time, the leadership. And because we are both reciprocal in nature, we are like the opposite poles of a magnet, and we polarize and we connect. And because we are providing these essential opposite poles to each other, we're able to effectively pair bond. Now, you could have good intentions, get into a reciprocal relationship, and not know how to pair bond because of a lot of sexual activity or a lot of failed pair bonding attempts. You could have that, so that can be a problem. But in to me, an ideal relationship, the one that we are striving towards, the one that my clients have after doing this work with me, are reciprocal relationships where they are both bringing something different to the table, but those two things are like two puzzle pieces that create the big whole, the big union. Okay, so these are reciprocal relationships. And if you are liking my work, you enjoy my work, you enjoy the kind of marriage that I have, you enjoy the testimonials of my clients, you want a reciprocal relationship. Okay, then we have a second part. And now reciprocal relationships have been a big part of our evolutionary history, and they are the ones that most naturally exist in nature. A second part of our relationship history, which is newer but still kind of long-standing, is transactional relationships. Transactional relationships are marriages and where it could be considered a marriage of convenience. It is because of some kind of a business deal or some kind of a transaction. So for example, let's say there's two businessmen and they're in business together, and in order to make their business relationship even stronger, they decide that their son and their daughter should get married so that now they're turning into a family unit and they're keeping the wealth within the family, and they think that the marriage will make the business transaction, the business relationship even stronger. That is a transactional relationship. Another idea or another type of transactional relationship is where, you know, 50-50 relationships come in. It's when two people come in and they say, hey, I'm a woman and you're a man. We both work. We both have money. We both contribute. I will pay 50% of the bills. You will pay 50% of the bills. I will do 50% of the household chores, you do 50% of the household chores, and they decide to have a transactional relationship. Another concept of a transactional relationship is a gold digging situation where the man needs a pretty something on his arm to make himself feel worthy or successful or whatever, and the woman wants money, and they decide that, hey, you give me access to your bank account and I give you access to my youth and beauty. And in this situation, it might look like a reciprocal relationship, but it's very transactional sometimes, and that's why there's cheating, there's no pair bonding, there's a lot of fighting, and you see a lot of these relationships where, you know, they're together, but they're not together. Like you can tell that they're not pair bonding together. They don't love each other. It seems to be a very transactional kind of relationship, right? Like, what's, you know, our ex-president, our last president, I'm blanking on his name right now. Oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking. I feel like he's in a very transactional marriage. I don't ever sense when anytime I've seen him and his wife together, I don't sense that this couple is pair bonded. And you can see that very clearly, by the way. You can see when a couple is pair bonded and when they're not. I actually have a very large access to this because of my culture. Even in my neighborhood, it's mostly immigrant people that are married for a really long time, obviously pair bonded. You can tell the difference when a couple is pair bonded, whereas they're just in a very transactional relationship. So there's very many types of transactional relationships. Now, you might even, sometimes it's not that obvious to the average person. So for example, let's say that there's a couple and they are pair bonded, they love each other, they're married, but because of financial reasons, for whatever reason, they are in a financial problem and they decide that they're going to both get a job and you know, attack the bills 50-50. And this is just a moment of time for them. They're pair bonded. The guy wants to provide, he was providing or will provide, but they decide that right now, this is what we need to do. We need to pay this off before we have babies. I've seen situations like that. And they're not in a transactional relationship. They're in a pair bonded relationship. There are two people that are genuinely helping, you know, their marriage out, their financial circumstances, and planning for their future. That can look like a transactional relationship, but it might not be. So don't always think that just because someone's doing 50-50 that they're transactional, or just because the guy's paying the bills that they're not transactional. Because a lot of times you might have a rich man that says, hey, you know, I'm gonna sleep around, I'm gonna date other people, but you're gonna be my wife, you're gonna be loyal, I'm gonna pay all your bills, you're gonna have a fabulous lifestyle. In essence, he's providing, but they're not pair bonded. So I think we need to understand that when I'm talking about marriage, I'm talking about pair bonding. I believe that I am not the kind of person that could, maybe if I was desperate enough, who knows, but I want the reciprocal pair bonded relationship. I'm a romantic. I want a romantic relationship. Luckily, that's what my husband wants as well. Like, we are not those kind of people that could just be happy in sort of a transactional relationship. That's just not us. But some people are okay with that. They're fine with that. I've heard of couples where the woman, you know, was from a poor village and she just wanted to marry someone that would help support her family, and she got married and they didn't want anything more. He was okay with her having his children and being at home, and they didn't want to pair bond necessarily. They didn't want to be romantic. They don't need that. I'm not judging them. It's just a different type of relationship. Mina, God bless you. I needed this today. Awesome, Grace. I love it when it's just like perfect. I love these definitions. Trump, yes, that's who I was. I don't see them and I don't know their marriage. I'm just guessing. But anytime I've seen them on camera together, I haven't felt like, oh, what a cute, like fuzzy, like pair bonded couple. Now, pair bonding, it's very different from having those 18 months of chemical hormonal responses that typically go away after 18 months. Very different. Gosh, I could teach and talk about this topic forever. Do I need a course on specifically on pair bonding? I will just like unleash the demon on you guys. Like, this I have this I could talk about this stuff forever. But I can't believe I didn't give myself full permission to just like talk about all the things that I've been obsessed with for over 2 decades. Like, why? I'm having so much fun. I think maybe I will. Maybe I will. I need like a whole like just a course on pair bonding. I feel like it's coming through. Because I feel like it's like leaking. Before something comes through and I give myself permission, if I don't give myself permission, it'll start like leaking in other ways where I'll just start teaching it to everyone, like everywhere, even if they don't want to hear it. We're all nerding out with you. Yes, I know. That's why I need to do it with you because otherwise it'll start leaking in places where I should just keep my mouth shut and like everyone doesn't need to hear this, Mina. You know where else? I before this year ends, I have a list from Haney of all the trainings that I have promised that I need to do. One of them is the sisterhood training in the physics of femininity. So I might use that as a kind of a mini pair bonding session too, because you in sisterhood you need pair bonding as well. Sisterhood requires more of that because sisterhood can be scary because of some other opposite DNA stuff that we have going on. So I'll definitely peacock in there with you guys a little bit with the pair bonding, but I feel like we need a full course on that. I think you assume right about Trump and millennia. Yes, here's the other thing I want to say. In modern day relationships, where a man and a woman are just like chemically inducing like the hormones, the fake pair bonding type of thing where they're just sleeping together, but they're not all in, they're not married. When we look at those couples, we often I'll see on the internet couple goals. Nope, those are chemical goals. They are not couple goals. Couple goals are pair bonded for a long time, possibly decades. That's couple goals. That is real couple goals. Someone that's hot and heavy and having a sexual experience for 18 months to 2 years before moving on to the next, that's not couple goals. That's chemical goals. So from now on, I want my if I see couple goals, I need to see at least one of my people saying chemical goals, chemistry goals. That's just chemistry, okay? That's something that's just it'll fizzle out. It fizzles out in 18 months unless you also have the pair bonding and the polarity and the all the other things. Pair bonding is more of the explanation of that hypnotic sex. Yes, I've talked about that in hypnotic sex. Yep. And I'm talking about that more tomorrow. So if you need to be in there, I'm really excited about tomorrow's training. Because pair bonding goes beyond sex, but sex definitely accelerates it, at least in the romantic sense. Of course, we pair bond with people we're not having sex with, but in a romantic relationship, it gives you that unique thing that you're not having sex with your mom, obviously, right? So there is a limit in pair bonding with other people, but there is no limit in pair bonding with your partner. And that's why I think it's so much more fun and juicy to do it that way. Out of topic, but Mina, your hair, what did you do? Has been wanting to ask the last couple of lives. So I this is professionally done. I just had a blowout because I had to get my roots done. Remember when I told you guys my don't look at my roots in the last few lives? So I just got them done. So they style it just nicer than my Dyson does. So I think it looks healthier when they style it. When I style it, I do it with my Dyson, which I am getting better, but it doesn't look as good as when Miguel does it, obviously. Mina, in a world full of headline and hooks, thank you for always giving us nuance and the in between the lines. Babe, thank you for saying this. We need that when it comes to relationships because what I don't want is perfectly great relationships being dumped away because someone tells you, told you some kind of headline thing, and now you're like second guessing your relationship. There are a lot of nuances in relationships, probably the most than in any other thing. Maybe health is a close second, but definitely in relationships, there is a lot of nuances, okay? Yeah, you need to go deep to understand. 18 months is a long time. Yeah, that's why like the average kind of dating scenario is like a year, 18 months. Like, you have sex where the chemistry is hot and heavy, and then you start getting real, the chemistry is gone, screw this, I'm out. And then you keep doing it. So we've trained ourselves to go wide. And we're training ourselves for serial monogamy instead of going really deep, which is scary. It's very vulnerable. I get it. But you're never really going to open up to your full potential and do your full inner work unless you go deep. I love you before, but after these live, I love you so much more. Thank you, Isabel. I feel like the more authentic I am, the more unafraid I am of going counterculture, the more people can really relate to me. It's interesting how that happens, isn't it? The thing we're most afraid to show is exactly what the world needs from us. That works in all relationships, even this relationship. Isn't that funny?